Welcome back to our 22nd episode of Flippin' Friday, and it's been a really long time since I've actually built a gaming PC. It's been almost a month now, so honestly I'm a little bit nervous. But regardless, today we're not just building a $600 gaming PC flip, but we're also going to be showing you a ton of alternative options for you to use if you're just going to follow this as a normal less than $600 gaming PC build guide. Maybe something isn't in stock at the same price I paid, or maybe you just can't replicate the same deal. Either way, I got you covered. Before we start building, I want to go over the performance parts just like normal. And for our CPU, we got none other than the Intel i3 12100F. Paid $100 for this, very easy to repeat, just brand new on Amazon or Newegg. For RAM, we got the XPG Z1 2x8GB clocked at 3200 megahertz. Paid around $50 for this. That's also easy to replicate. For our motherboard, this is the Gigabyte B660M DS3H. Picked this up on Amazon Warehouse per usual for my used motherboards for around $82. And then finally for our graphics card, I did not want to use this at all. We're going to be talking a ton about this later on in the video, but this kind of unfortunately is the Power Color Fighter RX 6500 XT. Haven't used this for a while, but again, we're going to talk about this later, but let's start building now. Real quickly, I just wanted to remind you guys that today's build was indeed activated with Windows like all my other PC builds and flips, and I personally use GVG Mall, which is also the sponsor of today's video. To celebrate their mid-year promotion for 2022, they're actually bumping up our normal 18% off discount up to 25% off, and that gets Windows keys and everything else down to some really affordable prices. They also have other great products on other software like Office 2021 and even some game keys from platforms like Steam, Origin, and Uplay, and they even have console stuff too like PSN and Xbox prepaid cards as well. Activating that Windows 10 on your computer is super simple to do. The entire process of buying and activating takes like 5 minutes total, so make sure you click that first link down in the description and don't forget to use discount code ZTT18 for 25% off. So like I said, we're using the Intel i3 12100F per usual, and even with Intel 13th gen being almost out at this point, this is still a really safe bet because there's just nothing on the entire market that's competing for around that $100 to $105 to $110 mark with the 12100F. This is just such a good CPU for the money, and that's why we're going to use it for pretty much every build guide between $600, $700, maybe even $800. And this motherboard here is the Gigabyte B660M DS3H, and this was such a good value play at $82 on Amazon Warehouse, like I said earlier, which you already know is where I buy like 99% of my used motherboards these days, and I definitely recommend you do the same as well. If you don't want to go used, then the price of new B660 motherboards are actually creeping really low. Like the MSI Pro B660M-G DDR4 is usually sitting around $90, and then the DS3H that we're using today is a little over $100 brand new. Now this RAM kit that we're using is the XPG Z1 2x8GB kit that's clocked at 3200 megahertz. I paid $50 for this, but there's a plethora of other options to go with if you're just looking for similar specs on an all-black kit. The YOLO kit is almost always available for less than $50, and I've used it a ton of times already, and also the G-Skill Ripjaws 5 is usually close in price as well. So this is my first time using this Thermaltake UX200 SE cooler, and I actually really like the toolless design to the installation, but we're already running into a possible problem. This is featuring the latch system where the cooler essentially latches on the top and bottom, but I'm a little bit worried on the clearance here with the M.2 shield that's pre-installed. So it won't be a huge deal. I think I'll be able to install the SSD without the shield, but definitely something to keep in mind with these micro ATX motherboards. Sometimes you can't fit the bigger tower coolers, and things like M.2 shields might get in the way. I definitely need to write down in my notes to use this cooler more often, especially for PC flips. Completely 100% toolless in this entire installation process. Money. I'm going to be using this often from now on.
And next up we have the power supply, and you may be starting to get sick of seeing this one as well, but this is the Thermaltake Smart BM2 550 watt. And the reason why I've been featuring this so many times on the channel lately is because it's been sitting on Amazon for $35 to $40. Now, at the time of recording, it is actually back up to its normal price of like $55. But if this continues to go on sale, this is really, really solid price performance, even for a tier C unit. Now, I'm personally comfortable with using tier C power supplies on any build, usually under like $800, maybe under $700 or somewhere, depending on what your comfort level is. But that is still really, really good. And it's also a semi-modular unit, which is really, really good for the price. If you are looking for some alternatives, if you do want to get tier B, then the Asus TUF 550 usually sits for a few more dollars on Amazon. That's a tier B unit if you want to use that. Another option that you could use if you want to go a little bit cheaper, of course, you can go down the used route, and somewhere like EVGA B stock would be a really, really good spot for that. Next up we have the case, and I've never used this before, and I actually haven't seen this until it popped up on a ZTT deal, which, by the way, you should join us in the ZTT Discord server to find really good deals like this. This is the Rosewill Spectra C101. It went on sale for $70, and it's rocking the micro ATX form factor. It comes with 3 pre-installed RGB fans. It's got the cutout for both the GPU cables and, of course, our power supply cutout, which, by the way, I forgot to put vinyl on there. This looks really, really valuable. Now, I believe the normal price of this is around $110. As of today, it's actually back on sale down to $72. I would 100% keep your eyes peeled on this one. This could become a new meta case, but I've said that before and I've been very, very wrong on that. I'm kind of hoping that this is the new meta.
A few moments later.
The whole thing about this case becoming a new meta came to a screeching halt. We'll see how this case fares as I'm building it, but so far the Spectra C101 looks very nice. Unfortunately, I jinxed myself, and this case is not going to be a meta decision.
I am shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked.
It's actually not a huge deal, but it is something to keep in mind. The 3 RGB fans that this case comes included with does not have a way for you to daisy chain other 3-pin ARGB products to it. It only has this single 3-pin female connector, which you would plug to the motherboard if you want to control the RGBs with your motherboard versus the button on here. But there's no way for me to tie in another female connector from something like my CPU cooler. So in order to bridge the gap here, I'm going to be using a device like this, which is just a male 3-pin ARGB to SATA power, so I can control RGBs without any motherboard or any Windows software. So what I'm going to do for just today's build is I'm going to control the RGB on the CPU cooler with this little button here, and then I can control the RGBs of the fans separately using the button on the case. So definitely something to keep in mind. It's not ideal. There are other devices that you could buy, but I didn't anticipate this being a problem. It's a huge disappointment because otherwise I think this case would be money. And if you are looking for some alternatives though, the Montech Air 100 would be a very similar replacement, as it comes with pre-installed RGB fans and the micro ATX form factor as well. And I also like the Raid Max F01 with pre-installed fans if you're willing to spend $10 extra, and if you're willing to go up to the ATX size motherboards. This up, we have the graphics card, and this, like I said at the beginning, this was not at all what I wanted for this video, but this is the RX 6500 XT, and the reason why I'm using it today is because I originally had a monster deal of an RX 6600 XT lined up on Mercari. I sniped it for $144. I thought it was just going to be the snipe of a lifetime, but again, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And after waiting a few days, the seller canceled the order on me, and I have to make this video, and this is literally the only thing that would potentially make sense for a build like this. Now, we are getting the advantage of using the 12100F because we get the full PCIe Gen 4, we get all the lanes, and we'll get the full potential of the 6500 XT. And with the pricing of this card these days, it's actually not nearly as terrible as it used to be. This was definitely a highly debatable card back during the GPU shortage, but that's the only reason why I'm using it today. I would love to use a 6600 or a 6600 XT in a build like this, but unfortunately, as a PC flipper, sometimes these things happen. Most people probably aren't trying to create content where they have to record it in a certain amount of time. So you could just get the card that you wanted, but in this situation, it's gonna be okay, but again, it's not ideal, and I would recommend the 6600 XT for a build like this. Now, I did just look up how much this card was going for brand new on the market, and it's averaging right around $170. And since we're getting that full performance with the Intel 12th gen, that's actually not a terrible purchase for a brand new GPU. This situation does highlight the fact that you could decide to go new or used here with our less than $600 total budget. If you go new, then the 6500 XT is about all you can afford, but if you go used, then a good deal on the RX 6600 or maybe even a 6600 XT on marketplaces like Java or Mercari would be an even better option. Personally, I go with a used card just to get that extra performance over the 6500 XT, but feel free to go with whatever you're comfortable with because at the end of the day, either option is going to get some solid 1080p performance as we're about to see in the benchmarking run here shortly. And with that being said, here you have the full parts list, and as you can see, I paid around $600 for the entire thing, and there's certainly still some room for profit on this one, but we are going to be a bit limited because of that 6500 XT, and that's just because it has such a bad rap in our community. Per usual, I would highly recommend posting your benchmarking scores in your sale posting so people can see that this combo can still indeed crank out some good numbers, and if you do, I would bet that you could probably still get around $700 for a system like this. And going back to those benchmarks though, here's what we get for this build specifically with the 12100F and 6500 XT combo. And as you can see, those are still some pretty solid results for some 1080p gaming action, and that 6500 XT could indeed just be upgraded in the future to a much beefier GPU that the 12100F won't actually bottleneck. And just like always, this build will of course be for sale over on our zaxtechdrift.com website. The next launch is going to be for Black Friday. We're not doing a November 1st launch, and that is going to be absolutely obnoxious, but please remember that our builds sell extremely quickly, so if you are going to wait that long for one of my builds, you're gonna have to do it quickly. But either way, hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Flippin' Friday. Make sure you click the card that's on the screen now to catch up on all the other previous episodes, and I'll see you guys in the next video.